The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist. On March 18, 1990, in Boston, Massachusetts, at precisely 1:24 a.m., two men dressed as Boston police officers approached the side entrance of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. They pressed the buzzer and informed the security guard they were responding to a disturbance call. The guard, breaking museum protocol, buzzed them in without verifying their credentials. Once inside, one of the officers calmly stated, "This is a robbery," and instructed the guard to summon his partner from his patrol rounds. When the second guard arrived, both men were handcuffed, their eyes and mouths covered with duct tape, and led to the basement where they were secured to pipes, completely immobilized. With the building now under their control, the thieves moved methodically through the museum. They didn't rush, taking 81 minutes to select and remove 13 masterpieces worth a combined $500 million in today's value. They cut Rembrandt's Storm on the Sea of Galilee, his only known seascape, directly from its frame. They did the same with Vermeer's The Concert, one of only 34 known works by the Dutch master. You see, what made this heist particularly unique wasn't just the value of the artwork, it was their peculiar selection. They left behind more valuable pieces, including Titian and Raphael masterworks hanging in the same room. Instead, they took seemingly random items, including a Chinese bronze beaker and a finial from a Napoleonic flag. Not a single piece has ever been recovered. To this day, empty frames hang on the museum walls, a haunting reminder of the missing masterpieces. The FBI investigation would span decades, following leads across multiple continents. Theories implicated organized crime figures, including Boston mobster Whitey Bulger, deceased criminals Robert Guarente and Robert Gentile, and even the Irish Republican Army. Despite promising leads, including a 2013 announcement that the FBI had identified the thieves, both now deceased, the art remains missing. The FBI believes the paintings traveled through organized crime circles in the Connecticut and Philadelphia regions before disappearing completely. The statute of limitations on the theft itself expired 5 years after the crime. However, possession of the stolen artwork remains a federal crime with no expiration date. The museum continues to offer a $10 million reward for information leading to the recovery of the 13 priceless treasures. This remains the largest art theft in American history, a perfectly executed crime that has outwitted the FBI, private investigators, and art recovery specialists for over 3 decades. The empty frames still hanging in the Gardner Museum serve as a constant reminder of the night two men, disguised as police officers, walked out with $500 million in irreplaceable art, never to be seen again. The Spider-Man of Paris. On May 20th, 2010, in Paris, France, under the cover of darkness, a lone figure scaled the exterior of the Musée d'Art Moderne de la Ville de Paris with astonishing agility. The man, later identified as Vjeran Tomic, a Serbian-born thief with remarkable climbing abilities, had earned his nickname Spider-Man through previous acrobatic burglaries across the city. Tomic had meticulously planned this heist for months, visiting the museum multiple times to study the security systems and identify his targets. On this night, he broke a window, slipped inside, and immediately disabled the alarm system, which shockingly had been malfunctioning for over 2 months, a critical flaw that museum officials had failed to address. Without the pressure of a blaring alarm, Tomic moved through the museum at his leisure. Security cameras captured ghostly images of the thief, but guards monitoring the system saw nothing. You see, Tomic had discovered that the security room's motion detectors weren't functioning either, giving him unprecedented freedom to select his prizes carefully. In less than 60 minutes, he cut 5 masterpieces from their frames: Picasso's Dove with Green Peas, Matisse's Pastoral, Braque's Olive Tree near Lestat, Modigliani's Woman with a Fan, and Léger's Still Life with Candlestick. Their combined value exceeded 100 million euros, approximately $140 million at that time, or about 190 million in today's money. The theft wasn't discovered until the following morning when staff arrived to find empty frames still hanging on the walls. No alarms had sounded. No guards had been alerted. It was the perfect crime. Investigators eventually connected the theft to Tomic after receiving a tip about his suspicious behavior. When they located him, they discovered he had already sold the paintings to a second man, Jean-Michel Corvus, an antiques dealer who then passed 3 of the paintings to a third accomplice, Jonathan Byrne. During his trial in 2017, Tomic admitted his involvement with unusual candor, describing himself as an art lover who had initially planned to steal just 1 painting but couldn't resist taking more once inside. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Corvus received 7 years, while Byrne was sentenced to 6. Yet despite the convictions, the fate of the 5 masterpieces remains unknown. Byrne claimed during the trial that he had panicked and destroyed the paintings, a statement investigators believe was a lie to lower the severity of his charges. To this day, the 5 priceless works from the Spider-Man heist remain missing, presumed hidden away in a private collection, or more tragically, destroyed to eliminate evidence. The Musée d'Art Moderne's walls still bear the absence of these irreplaceable works, stolen by a man who moved through security systems as effortlessly as his arachnid arachnid namesake moves across a web. The Marie Antoinette watch heist. On April 15, 1983 in Jerusalem, Israel, a man named Naaman Diller, a former Israeli soldier and accomplished thief, approached the LA Mayer Museum for Islamic art. Under cover of night, he carefully removed a window panel from the building's rear, creating just enough space to slip his slim frame inside. The museum, built like a fortress from the front, had inexplicably neglected its back entrance security. Once inside, Diller demonstrated extraordinary patience and precision. Moving methodically through the darkened halls, he disabled the rudimentary alarm system and made his way to the museum's prized clock and watch collection, one of the most valuable horological collections in the world. Over the next several hours, Diller meticulously selected and removed 106 timepieces, including the crown jewel, the Marie Antoinette pocket watch. This masterpiece, commissioned in 1783 for the ill-fated French queen, had taken master watchmaker Abraham Louis Breguet 44 years to complete, so long that neither Marie Antoinette nor Breguet lived to see its completion. Horologists considered it the Mona Lisa of watches, valued at over $30 million in today's currency. You see, this wasn't a smash-and-grab operation. Diller left no fingerprints, no DNA, not a single piece of physical evidence. Museum officials arrived the following morning to find empty display cases with no signs of forced entry. The alarms had never triggered. It was as if the watches had simply vanished into thin air. The case quickly went cold. For over 20 years, Israeli police had no suspects, no leads, and no hope of recovering these priceless treasures. Meanwhile, Diller changed his name, relocated to the United States, and lived comfortably in Los Angeles, selling off individual timepieces to discreet collectors when he needed cash. The breakthrough came in the most unexpected way. In 2004, Diller, dying of cancer and seeking absolution, confessed the decades-old crime to his wife. Upon his death, she attempted to auction several of the remaining watches through a Tel Aviv dealer. Her attorney approached the museum, hoping to negotiate immunity in exchange for returning the collection. Israeli police were stunned when 96 of the 106 stolen timepieces were recovered in 2008, including the Marie Antoinette watch, perfectly preserved in its original wooden box, wrapped in newspaper inside a safety deposit box in Los Angeles. The collection was valued at over $40 million. The watches, including the Marie Antoinette masterpiece, were triumphantly returned to display at the museum, now behind significantly upgraded security systems. Diller, the master thief who had pulled off one of history's most remarkable heists, had taken his methods to the grave, leaving behind only his deathbed confession and a collection of timepieces that had mysteriously disappeared for a quarter century, only to reappear as if time itself had stood still. The Scream's double heist. On February 12, 1994, in Oslo, Norway, as the Winter Olympics opened in Lillehammer, just 110 miles away, two men placed a ladder against an exterior wall of the National Gallery. They climbed to a second-floor window, smashed the glass, and entered the museum. In just 50 seconds, they cut Edvard Munch's iconic painting, The Scream, from the wall and disappeared into the early morning darkness. In their wake, they left only a postcard with a mocking message scrawled across it. Thanks for the poor security. The timing couldn't have been more calculated. With Norway's attention fixed on the Olympics, the nation's most treasured artwork had vanished, while security resources were stretched thin. The audacity of the theft shocked the art world. A global icon, the twisted, haunting figure with hands pressed against its face in existential agony, had been snatched with almost comical ease. Norwegian authorities immediately launched a massive investigation, but leads were scarce. Then came the ransom demands, $1 million for the painting's safe return. Months passed with no progress until British police, working with their Norwegian counterparts, mounted an elaborate sting operation. 4 men were arrested, and on May 7, 1994, The Scream was recovered, largely undamaged. Case closed? Not quite. You see, Edvard Munch created 4 versions of The Scream, and what happened next defied belief. On August 22, 2004, in broad daylight, 2 masked men armed with handguns stormed into Oslo's Munch Museum. With dozens of visitors watching in horror, they ripped another version of The Scream and Munch's Madonna from the walls. The armed men marched out the front door and escaped in a waiting getaway car. The entire robbery took less than 90 seconds. The audacity was staggering. How could the same iconic painting be stolen twice within a decade? The second theft had none of the finesse of the first. It was brutal, violent, and committed in front of numerous witnesses. The paintings were valued at approximately $120 million in today's currency. For 2 agonizing years, the artworks remained missing. Finally, in 2006, Norwegian police recovered both paintings following a series of raids. The damage was extensive. The Scream had suffered moisture damage and tears in one corner, while Madonna had several holes and tears. 6 men were eventually convicted for their roles in the heist. The bizarre double theft of The Scream remains one of art history's strangest chapters. A painting that depicts profound anxiety had itself become a source of national anxiety for Norway. Today, both versions are displayed behind enhanced security systems with bulletproof glass. The irony isn't lost on visitors who stare at the screaming figure. The painting that depicts human vulnerability had itself proven all too vulnerable. The Take-away Rembrandt. On December 14, 1966, in London, England, a small portrait measuring just 8 inches by 6 inches disappeared from the walls of the Dulwich Picture Gallery. The painting, Rembrandt's portrait of Jacob de Gane III, was no ordinary artwork. This intimate oil painting of a Dutch calligrapher, valued at approximately 30 million in today's currency, would soon earn an unexpected nickname, Take-away Rembrandt. The theft itself was unremarkable. Security was minimal, and the small painting was simply removed from the wall during visiting hours. What makes this heist extraordinary isn't how it was stolen, but rather how many times it would be stolen in the years to come. Just 3 years later, in 1969, the painting vanished again from the same gallery, and yet again in 1983. 4 separate thefts of the same painting from the same location. A bizarre record unmatched in art crime history. What's even more remarkable than the repeated thefts were the unexpected recoveries. After the first theft, the painting was found leaning against a tombstone in a local cemetery. Following the second disappearance, police recovered it from the backseat of a taxi. The third time, it was discovered stashed in a luggage locker at a railway station in Münster, Germany. After the fourth theft, the painting turned up behind a bench at Streatham Cemetery in South London. You see, the pattern was always the same. The painting would vanish with little evidence, only to reappear days or weeks later, abandoned in a public location, undamaged and seemingly waiting to be found. It was as if the thieves had no interest in selling or keeping their prize. Theories about the repeated thefts have perplexed investigators for decades. Some believe the painting was stolen as an initiation rite for aspiring art thieves, a test of skill with minimal risk since the small portrait could be easily concealed. Others suggest it served as a practice run for more ambitious heists. A few art crime experts have proposed it might have been stolen on commission, then returned when the buyer backed out. Perhaps the most intriguing theory comes from Scotland Yard detective Charles Hill, who suggested the painting became a form of underworld currency, stolen not for its artistic value, but to settle debts between criminals or to serve as collateral in illegal transactions. Despite the repeated thefts, no one has ever been convicted for stealing the Take-away Rembrandt. Today, the painting hangs securely in the Dulwich Picture Gallery behind enhanced security systems, including a special electronic tag. The small portrait that left the gallery 4 times uninvited has become one of the most famous paintings in the world, not for its artistic merit alone, but for its unusual distinction as both the most frequently stolen and most frequently recovered artwork in history.